Going pretty fast.
What are we looking at here?
We're looking at the old ranch I started out with in 1945.
What is the structure behind us?
The structure behind is the old dairy barn that my dad and I built in 48, 49.
Is that a silo?
That's a silo we used for a year or two till we found out there was easier ways to put up corn.
What is that on top of the barn?
There is a cooling tower to cool the milk with.
This used to be a farm.
This first part here used to be an orchard. And then from about 200 feet over was all hay fields and cornfields. Pastures. This was the first culinary well that I drilled when I moved up here.
What year was that?
What
year did you move here?
I moved here in 1945.
Is this well
this well for our yard and our barn.
Is this well still used at all?
No, the power company abandoned it when they took the ranch over. Here. I used it a year or two and it was so much work to fill it that we abandoned it and made a grain bin out of it, and we put grain in that. Augured our grain out for our dairy cows in it.
What was so hard to put in it?
We put silage in it. You had to blow it in and then shovel it out, and there was a lot moderner ways to get it out of there after they built this silo. Duration. Had all the compressors and stuff down into this room.
How did the system work?
What do you mean?
How did the compressors and the cooling system work together with this operation?
It cooled off a brine tank in there to, we pumped the water through at first we pumped the water through the aerator. In later years we got a milk tank, and then we used it to cool the milk tank off as the milk went into the tank.
And what are we looking at behind us here?
Behind us is the dairy barn. My dad and I built this barn in 1948, and this is the first walk-through barn that was built in the Moapa Valley. When we got it completed, the health department wouldn't accept it because they didn't have any rules and regulations on a milk barn of this kind at that time.
How did you finally get it accepted?
Well, after going through a lot of red tape, why then the county ordinance adopted this type of a barn, and that was the only one that let you build later.
So you started a revolution.
Whatever it was. We used to dump the milk when we first started. We dumped the milk into a receiver here. It run through an aerator and dropped into a can in there, and then we put it in the ice box to cool it. And then when we changed over to a milk tank, why, we had a stainless steel pipe that went from the milking cows right into the tank.
Where was the tank?
The tank was in this holding room right here. This was the milk tank holding room. I'm confused. We got two systems here. See, the first time we aerated our milk right here, and we carried it into the ice box. That's what cooled, and that's what kept the milk cool to the truck coming to pick it up to take it to the processing plant.
And then later, was there a big
And
milk tank? in
then
here?
later, why, we got the big milk holding tank, and it set in here, and the milk comes straight from the cow into the tank.
Okay, show us where the cows were milked.
And we go through here and into here, and this is what they call a walk-through milk barn. The cows would put them in that corral out there, and you'd open this door, and the cows would come in here. We'd wash the cows off, and the milk machine, you'd hook them onto the cow.
And how many
Yeah.
could you milk at a time here?
You could milk 6 cows at a time.
3 on each side or 6 on each side?
Three on each side. And you had a measuring device up in the attic that dropped the grain down to the cow according to the amount of milk she give. And at that time, they didn't know what this type of a barn meant, so the county condemned it. We had to go through a lot of red tape to get it okayed.
So did you actually design the construction
This
of
is
this?
our, yeah, we designed this ourselves, my dad and I. Malcolm, Naoma, and Cornell. what the hell is that?
61.
That must have been Lois,
Uh-huh.
because this here wasn't elevated before. You taking that?
Mm-hmm. And this is where they were held
But you
initially?
brought the cows in here, and you had sprinklers to wash the udders off, and then you'd open that door, and the cows would go up in on each side, and you'd wash and dry their udders and put the milkers on them.
Now, did those doors slide from left to right?
Yeah. And when the cow was through, she went through the end and back out the out lane.
The other end?
Yeah. Back into the feed main.
So there were feed mangers. How did you get the cows from one end of this to the other?
They walked through, but you had sliding doors here, which has been taken out.
Oh, I see.
But there's a sliding door for each cow. One cow here, and one cow there. You had sliding doors here to keep them individual. Then this opening here was to clean their udders and put the milkers on.
And then they went out that door
And
there.
then they went out this door here and back to the corrals. All of the, what would you call it?
Sewer?
The sewer run through this hole here and out into the field down sewer line. This was your dumping line for your sewer, cow manure and what have you. It run out into the fields.
So all this that we're looking at now was once corrals?
All corrals, yes.
What kind of tree is that out there?
That there is a mock orange tree. That other one was a date tree. That's a palm date tree. There, it has palm dates on it. Wood here was setting to the side of the house when I come up here, and it was much smaller than it is right there now. And most of the cottonwoods that's planted up here is planted from limbs off of the old trees.
You just stick a limb in the ground and it grows?
Yeah, stick a limb in the ground and water it, and it'll come make a tree out of it in several years. Those are all tamaracks. Those are wind breaks and water breaks for the wash that goes down through there. Moved up here was just started for a well. So we continued on down 26 feet to water, and we'd pump our irrigation water out into this holding pond here and then distribute it through the ditches.
You had ditch system throughout the whole ranch.
That cement ditch system before we sold through the ranch. Yeah. When I started, didn't have any cement ditches. Pipe of ditches, we had the V ditches. Before we got finished, we had them all through the ranch. We had about 3 miles of them. Got to where it wasn't pumping enough water, so I panicked and drilled this well, 16-inch hole, and we didn't get any water in it. Moved across the road and it was dry. Moved back 180 feet and got 2,200 gallons a minute.
What is that box there now?
This is a box that they've got an instrument in there reading the water levels. Wait a minute till I think it out. After using that upright silo a year or two, it was so much extra work that we went and dug this silo here, and we could put much more tonnage in it and get it out much more easier. We could get it out with equipment, where that one you had to hand shovel it. That's the reason for this pit saw.
What is this? What is silage?
Silage is corn chopped up for cow feed.
Just corn?
Well, corn and cane and Sudan, and we put alfalfa chop in there and a little of everything.
And what did you use it for?
Use it for cow feed. Feed the dairy cows.
What season?
The year round.
Year round.
Well, mostly in the winter, but I mean, you could use it the year round. We'd put it up in the summer, and then when the corn wasn't growing in the winter, well, you fed that. And when I had a big hay fire and burned all the krills up, and I moved it over here on the hill, and this mock orange come up from the ground, and that's the way it got started.